Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Rike manufactured Ketuo branded KT-Griffin, designed by David Jin, who, by the way, I'm going to get this out right off the bat. It was interesting. I was reading about this knife. This gentleman has a career in firearm design, but growing up was heavily inspired by Gundam. Many of you, I'm sure, if you're around my age, I'm 36. You probably grew up watching Gundam, some version of that show, maybe on Cartoon Network. And also, his inspiration lies heavily with Bob Trzwola. So, a really interesting combination of design influences. And after reading that, I was like, you know what? All of a sudden, the whole knife makes a lot more sense, at least, from the perspective of somebody who has, all of those things sort of influencing them. So yeah, this is an interesting knife. It is super duper high quality, as is generally the case with anything that is manufactured by Rike, especially now in 2023. Thank you so much to Rike/Ketuo. That's a little bit confusing. We're going to go over that, for sending this in for me to take a look at. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. This knife is available and is not nearly as expensive as some of the other wildly, crazy, innovative things that have been sent to me from Rike here recently. So I will link it down in the description. For those confused, Ketuo is the website and the brand that many of these, it's the brand, right? But it's being manufactured by Rike. While Rike does sell their own stuff branded as Rike stuff, this is a Ketuo branded knife designed by David Jin and is sold on the Ketuo website, but is manufactured by Rike. So it's taken me a bit to slowly get all of this down, especially when we look at a lot of different things that are coming from these different places, right? But there you go, for anybody confused. Let's go ahead and measure it, the overall length of the KT-Griffin. Definitely, why did I say it like that? The KT-Griffin, sorry. 8.5 inches. Blade length is coming in at 3.65. Cutting edge, 3 1/8 because of a large, it's like a trapezoid choil. But the angular design, again, right? He says this in the read-up. He's like, I understand, I still want the thing to be ergonomic, but I am aesthetically heavily inspired by, the angular aesthetic of Gundams. So it's not like he was like, I tried to make a circle and it came out a trapezoid. No, he knew what he was doing, right? It's intentional. But yeah, it is less comfortable than a half or semicircle. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. I was about to jump to a different part of my review process. Up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2. So you can see here, same overall length as the Rat 1. It's not a small knife, definitely. How about up against the Demco AD 20.5? There we go. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3? Yes, definitely a little bit longer than the Spyderco PM2. And then last but not least, up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and the Benchmade Bug Out. Alrighty. How's the action on this knife? If you've handled anything from Rike here recently, you'll know that their manufacturing process is pretty, or their manufacturing quality is pretty amazing. They are definitely one of the most capable companies out there. There are a lot of people overlooking them. But people who are familiar with Rike know this, right? It's not like, most people are going to be like, yeah, it's crazy. It's top notch, especially when you consider all the innovative stuff. This is a simple plunge lock, right? It's not really anything crazy going on here. It's titanium. It's M390. There's a little bit of stick, not very much. It's so minimal that I'm almost certain it'll go away. The actual pivot action is extremely smooth, right? And nice thing about this plunge lock, it actually locks up solid, which is something that some companies still cannot get right in 2023. If you're going to make a plunge lock, a button lock, right, and it's got a little bit of up and down play, that was something that I would let go, like back when it was, very new and it was just becoming a trend. I think, kind of hard. But then a company started figuring out that you can get these things absolutely solid. This is a great example of that. And now in 2023, up and down play, side to side play can be tightened out, but up and down play on a plunge lock, no, it's no longer excusable. We've got companies who are doing these things for $50 or less, and they're getting them absolutely solid. So if you're gonna, design one and have it made by some OEM, or you are the OEM or whatever, you're gonna make one, it should be completely solid. Absolutely. It doesn't matter if it's $40 knife or a $500 knife, it's got to be completely solid, right? And it's nice to find out that this is. So you can reverse flick this knife, right? You can sort of thumb it out. The detent is tuned to work with all of these different things, and it's also the plunge lock that is the detent. So you're not gonna get, a detent. It's not possible to achieve a detent strength of something like a Hinder XM24 that's got a heavy duty like ball detent. It's just not going to be the case, right? So the reverse flick works fine. The flipper works fine if you do it a particular way. You can obviously use the button to just whip it out. The front flipper's all right. Thumb flicking it out, you almost have to whip it because it wants to come out too readily, right? The leverage I get off of it. It's fine though. It's okay. It's understandably light, right? Yes, you whip it out, right? But this is why I think that's such a stupid thing, right? And listen, I know that like a good chunk of the people watching are going to be like, I've said that at some point. Are you calling me stupid? Yeah, and I have too, and we're all stupid for saying it. I can take my XM24 and whip that thing out, and that's got one of the heaviest detents of anything in my collection. In fact, I don't think there's a knife in my collection that is utilizing a detent to hold itself in place that I can't whip the thing out. I think it has a lot more to do with obviously the length of the blade, the mass of the blade, right? You could have something with a massively heavy detent, but if velocity, is going to allow you to do that, it's just that it can happen. Really what we should be asking is that a likely thing to occur while the thing is properly fixed on the inside of your pocket? If you wear it on the outside of your pocket like a freaking dingus and you do parkour, then it might flip out, right? But then you have to question all of the choices leading up to this weird situation you found yourself in, right? So I don't know that that's a valid thing. Obviously, it needs to have something holding the blade in place. We don't want it swinging out loosey-goosey, right? But we just, we got to condense that down to a more logical thought process. Anyways, right? If you are going to mount this thing in your pocket and not up against the back seam and up at the front like a dingus, and you are going to sprint and wildly kick your legs around, right? You are Ken from Street Fighter, and you're going to do the you're going to do that. Well, then maybe this is going to come flying out. That might be a problem. If you're anybody else, probably not. Anyways, the flipper tab doesn't work exactly the exact. Is that Ken who does that move? I can't remember. It's been a long time since I was pumping quarters into that game at the bowling alley as a kid. But anyways, the flipper tab has a problem. You can light switch it, no problem, but if you don't get your finger out of the way, then it's going to stop right here where the back of the front flipper is, right? Some people like to light switch their knives, and sometimes just flipping it. There was a couple of times where just like a few times in a row, I was like, why is it getting stuck? And I realized it's because I'm not moving my finger out of the way. So if you like to push button flip your knives, it's not going to work. You have to light switch it and get that finger out of the way. But we have a lot of options for deployment here, and it works. It's just some of them are a little bit weird. I don't want to be any more harsh than that. Carry profile. Let's do thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. Yeah, it's a little bit thicker. You can see that there. Chamfered edges, the actual surface is up here, so it's a little bit thicker, not anything crazy. Length and height up against the PM2 and the Para 3. It's about as long as the PM2 in your pocket, but it's not quite as tall. I don't know. I mean, you're going to notice this thing more in your pocket simply because my PM2 is titanium, and it's been customized, obviously, right? The standard PM2 is G10, so this is still going to feel bigger than the total amount of space it takes up about the same. The weight and the mass of it's definitely going to feel a little bit bigger. All right. Let's do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. This knife for the body screws uses, people who look at that, proprietary. It's a flathead. I mean, you can find a flathead that will fit it. You can find a specific tool, a fairly common tool that will, or bit head that will fit exactly. And if you don't, I mean, like, obviously if you use a flathead, it's going to mar it up, right? Whenever I say that, people are like, actually, it'll mar it. Yeah, there is a tool that you can find pretty easily that will fit perfectly in there. And you can disassemble it. It's fine, right? These are T6 screws that hold in the pocket clip and the filler tab, which I don't mind is there. There's enough going on with this design that the filler tab actually kind of works with it. You might be thinking, well, but you definitely need a proprietary tool to hold this other side. Actually, I don't need to take this knife apart to show you guys this because it comes with plenty of extra hardware. I think we can actually just see. But so here's the spare pivot, right? This big piece right here. You see that? The edge of it, the pivot barrel is D-shaped, which means it's captive. I don't know why we have this. It's just an interesting pivot, but it's not required. You don't need like a weird alien bit to hold this side and then turn this side. No, you just turn this side and it should be fine. So yeah, and actually it's even the case. This is why I find it inexcusable that other companies do their body screws non-captive. Rike is also doing the freaking body screws. You can see this right here. That's a body Chicago screw. See the little toenail on there? It's flat. It's not going to turn. Oops. So yeah, that's really nice. Actually, this would be a pretty easy knife to disassemble. So the designer and I think maybe the Rike manufacturing team just has like certain standards that are just so obvious. A lot of this stuff is such like on a caveman level obvious, and Rike, some of the designers and manufacturers, you know, or the people who are responsible for like getting everything fitted together at Rike are so far beyond what should just be a basic quality of life thing, right? So we see this a lot with Rike, and then other companies are just like, fire, just like that's where they are. It's like, it's 2023. What are we doing, right? So anyways, I appreciate the designer and or the Rike team for just doing these obvious little things. It's nice. Anyways, let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness, and then we'll weigh it. Can I imagine if this is your first time watching my channel? Like, this is a fairly normal review for me, but then again, it's got a little extra zest on it. It's always weird people watching my stuff for the first time. 135 thousandths is what we're looking at on the spine. And yeah, I still have, you're going to see a bunch of videos in a row where I've got like blue fingernails because I let my daughter paint my fingernails, and it did. That stuff does not always come. Fingernail polish remover they should put on the bottle, they should say, is 89% effective? Because it doesn't work. It doesn't get it all off. They're just like, oh yeah, just put it on there. It'll be pretty good. Anyways, let's weigh it. What do we got? Titanium M390, and we got some they call it forged carbon fiber. It's just like a shred carbon fiber. Looks good though, no voids. Nice inlay work too. Transitions between titanium and carbon fiber are really nice. So that's what we're looking at for materials. Pretty, straightforward. Whoops, zero out. There we go. Weight. Yeah, 4.73 ounces. Not crazy. It's about what I thought. I honestly thought maybe 5, so it's fine. Yeah, should we go ahead and move forward? I think maybe so. Oh, what are they hardening their M390 to? Industry standard 59 to 61. Like many of you, I would prefer it was 60 to 62, but we just don't get that. We get 59 to 61. If you get one of these and somehow have a way of testing it, right? Like with actual proper equipment, and you end up with a 60 or a 61, then you've got a good heat treat. A 59, in my opinion, isn't very good, but it's an opinion, right? Furthermore, we have to remember that geometry plays a much bigger role in the edge's performance than heat treat, but it is important, obviously, to optimize heat treat alongside of geometry to get the best possible performance. It's almost like something that I have to say, because like that, when we talk about geometry and we talk about heat treatment, it just stirs up. It's just stirring the spaghetti, right? But yeah, most people are not going to be super pleased with a 59 Rockwell hardness M390. That's just not going to be the case. I prefer different steel entirely because of, M390's brittleness at the appropriate, or in my opinion, the appropriate range, right? And if you get it down to a hardness where it's not brittle, you lose out on the other balance of properties that it's meant to have optimally balanced. So I've been making the same argument for like 5 years. God, I'm ready for M390 to die. I just am. It's just not, I just am sick of M390. It's just really not that impressive of a composition, in my opinion. Anyways, let's go ahead and move forward here. So this is one of those knives that aesthetically is going to appeal to some people and not others. I think it's very obvious that the designer was not trying to please everybody with the design, right? He's trying to make something that he thought looked cool. And in a lot of ways, it does. I mean, here's what I appreciate about this. It is that kind of over-the-top sort of tactical aesthetic without being too busy. There's not so much going on here that I can't appreciate, or I just feel like some of those designs get kind of lost in themselves. It's almost like they had to fill up every space with something, and they didn't stop to consider whether or not that something they filled the space with actually went with the theme. I think the whole theme was done pretty well here. In areas like this, I find really impressive, where it's flat and just sort of drop, almost like you're dropping into the floor of some complex, right? It kind of, I like how that looks. I also like this area where we have this chamfered area and then almost this shelf over here that it transitions into. And then back here, we have these lines. I mean, it really does look like a piece that could have fallen off of a Gundam during battle, right? I used to sort of watch that show as it came on before or after Dragon Ball Z. So I was never really like wrapped up in the story, and I couldn't follow along with when they restarted the series, which is some bullcrap. Toonami and Cartoon Network used to do that all the time, and it used to frustrate the hell out of all of us as kids. They'd be like, surprise, instead of dropping the new season or the continuation, we just started it over, idiots. Have fun watching. You better keep watching to see when we drop it. Oh man, you remember those days? So frustrating. But I used to watch it, so I don't know a lot. But I mean, from what I remember watching, yeah, it does look like that. I like the lip around the pivot, right? Every area, it's kind of like I said, it's busy, but it's purposefully busy, right? The backspacer doesn't look out of place. The design of the backspacer, I think, looks really cool. Honestly, the most boring part of the knife is the pocket clip. But the pocket clip didn't really need to be anything else, right? I really like this finish that Rike is capable of doing. I don't know. I mean, it looks like a glass blasting, but I've seen similar finishes called different things. If it's a stone wash, or if that's what they're calling it, the media must be so tiny. I mean, it must basically be like little particles of glass, right? It just looks like a metallic overcast sky, and I like it. I like the hole here. I like the fuller, right? I like the little, almost a harpoon notch here. This area right here feels exactly like you would guess. It feels like you're holding on to the inside of a metal trapezoid. But it does work. You can get the second knuckle in there pretty safely, and there's a deep enough drop off to where you're going to know before you run your finger up on the blade. So that's cool. Half circle would have been more comfortable, but it absolutely would have taken away from the design aesthetically. We have a drop point. Well, I don't know if they call this a spear point, a drop point, whatever. It's the pointy one that doesn't have the tanto edge. Right? Blade-shaped police getting ready to pounce. They're like, wait until he commits an actual offense. We gotta have something on him. Not today. Not today. You save your sirens and your cuffs for another day. There's a tanto version is what I was trying to say. So you can, the tanto version I think looks even more like this hole because it's got another angle, right? Cutting performance wise, I mean, it's not super thick to begin with. The flat ends about right here. I mean, you can see where it ends, right? I'm getting my fingerprints all over it, sorry. And then we've got a reasonable amount of room to taper down to a sort of medium thick. It's sharpened plenty well. Rike knows how to sharpen a blade. The bevels are even on both sides, right? It looks good. It'll work. You're gonna buy a knife like this for reasons beyond function. It does function. There are more functional knives out there. Nobody needs to point that out. And for some reason, we still have people thinking that everybody watching the same video, for some reason, doesn't understand that. We do. Thank you. Thank you for the wisdom you have brought this temple, but people are aware of that. There are functional knives that will, that will function better than this for less than $50. That's very apparent. But you don't buy this because you're confused about function and assuming that you're somehow buying more utility with this. You buy this for the design, right? The fact that it should be machined properly and function properly, it all goes along with it. People understand that because of the name behind it. It's Rike, right? And if you didn't, well, then you can get this information right here and right now. The name suggests it's going to be properly manufactured, right? The quality is good. The materials are good, right? The heat treat is okay, right? The geometry is okay. But the design of this is this is for people who are kind of bored with the basic idea of utility and want, general utility, but at the same time, something that is more of a conversation piece or just more of a general interest for themselves. And it seems obvious that that's what this person was designing. And successfully, right? Outside of a little bit of awkwardness with the flipper tab, successfully, in my opinion. The lanyard hole, there's a lanyard hole, but to me, it's just more interesting because it goes along with the look, right? Most people aren't going to use it, but it goes along with it. The pocket clip is actually very functionally designed. Sort of a medium depth. I think that's going to be about right there. The pocket is fine. It's milled. Only pointy spots right at the end, but you're not really going to notice it. It's actually more comfortable than you would think, right? It's still not like hand melting because it's angular, but the edges are all knocked down. The angles aren't sharp. So it's fine. Like I said, a little bit of stick, deep shouldering with the stop pin in the back of the blade, right? No blade play up, down, left, or right. No hint of it. Very smooth. No pivot lash. Here's the actual detent. It does click, which is something you don't normally get with a plunge lock. But yeah, it does. No lash or anything like that. Perfect centering. That's generally what you're going to get with a Rike knife. What's the price? $250. It's not incredible. There are definitely companies out there doing similar for less, right? Some companies are doing similar with S90V for less. This is a little bit more. There's a little bit more going on here. To be fair, if this was manufactured by We Knives, they'd be like, oh yeah, it's $320 and it's a special edition. That's what would happen, right? So we're coming in higher than some companies I think would do this. We're coming in lower than a company like We. Rike is able to polish these things and execute these things a bit better than most of their competition. Rike, Maxace, and Ria are doing things on another level right now. So when we get something that's substantially under $300 from any of those companies, it's kind of cool, right? Still, though, it still feels this particular knife is interesting and it's different. The design is a little bit different. If you like the multiple means of deployment, you like the kind of overly tactical, futuristic look, right? Then you're really going to like this because it's made really, really well. But this knife is for very, very few people. And those few people are 100% knife enthusiasts who just want something cool to carry in their pocket. I would put myself in that same category. So this is neat. I think it would be substantially more impressive if the price was a little bit lower, which I know that they definitely can accomplish. But it's not so massively over where I would think. Like if this came in at $220, I'd be like, yeah, that's pretty, So it's 30 over, but so is everything, right? It used to be everything's 20 overpriced. Now everything's 30 overpriced because of inflation. I don't accept that anything is actually on point. No, I'm kidding. This is fine. It's neat. It's not a knife that everybody needs to rush out and buy. But if you do pick this up and you like how it looks, I think you're going to be happy with how it functions. It's just, the detent's a little light for some of the deployment methods, and it's right on for others. Like the reverse flick, it's just the detent just feels perfect for that. But your front flip it's okay. The light switch flip is all right? Forward, the thumb deployment is a little weird, and if you try to push button it, you're going to get stuck right here, right? But it is fidgety, and it works really well. It's nice and smooth, very solid. So, yeah, interesting stuff from Rike and David Jin. That's going to be pretty much it today, guys. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.